In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a text file in Python and write in it. So let's get started. So to start with, we use a built-in function which is open, and it takes two arguments. First is the name of the file which we want to create or read. So let's say I want to just create a file which is demo.txt in the same folder in which I'm working in. So you can see I'm working in my file handling project, and there is only one file there which is test.py, and this demo.txt file will be created in the same folder. Now the second argument which we want to give here is the mode. So there are several types of modes which we can use with this open function to work with the files. So let me show you the list of some of these modes. So you can see on the left hand side I have listed the modes. So you can use the R or R plus or W or W plus or A or B. Now R is used to read from the file, and if you don't provide any mode to this function, then the default mode is the read mode. Now if you want to write to a file, you use this write mode with a keyword W. So we are going to use this W keyword in order to write to the file. So let's use this W keyword here, and then this open function returns a file object. So let's store this file object into a variable. Now generally we call this file object a file handler, and using this file handler we can work with the file on which we are working on. So this file handler will be used to work on this file which we want to create. Now in the next line I will just use this file handler, and then I can call some methods here. You can see there is a list of methods I can call on this file handler which is returned by this open function. So to write into a file, I can use the write function, and here inside the write function you can provide any text whatever you want to write to the file. So let's say I just want to write this line of string to my text file which I'm creating. So I can just paste this text here, and then after writing to a file, when you are finished working with the file, you use once again this fh and then call a method called close on it. Now what does this close function do? So this close function is used to close the file and immediately free up any system resources used by your file handler, which is fh. And it's a good practice to use this whenever you are done with the handling of your file. So always remember to use this close function after you are done with the handling of your file. So this is a good practice, but I would say you must call this function, and that's it. So this W mode, if the file demo.txt doesn't exist, it's going to create the file and then it's going to write this text into the file. So W mode is responsible for creating the file also, and if the file already exists, it will overwrite the previous string by the string which you are writing using this write function. So let me just run this code, and you will keep eye on this project because this file will be created inside this project. So I'm going to right click and then run this test file, and you will see as soon as I run this test file, there is one more file created here which is demo.txt, and when I click on this file, you can see the same text appears here which we have written using the write function. Now if you want to provide the line breaks, you can provide them using \n, and I'm going to once again run the code. So remember, when the file doesn't exist, the W mode is going to create the file, and if the file already exists, which it does now, then it's going to overwrite it. So I'm going to run the program once again and see the content of this demo.txt, and you can see this string is split into 2 lines, which is done by this \n. So let me just split the screen so you will see the demo in the real time. So on the right hand side I have my demo.txt file, and on the left hand side I have this code on which I'm working on. So let's write something else in this file. So instead of writing this big line of text into the file, what I want to do now is I want to use a for loop to print 10 lines into this demo.txt file. So I'm going to use a for loop for that, and I'm going to just write for I in range, and let's say the range is 10, and then we will call our write function using this fh file handler. And then what I want to write here is, let's say this is line number modulus d, and I will just replace this mod d with the line number, and then I will just provide the line break after that. And in the previous videos we have already seen that when you use this modulo symbol and then give some value here, for example I, then this mod d will be replaced by this I, right? So let's run the code and let's see what happens now. So I'm going to run this code, and now you will see that this code prints this is line number 0, this is line number 1, because the range starts from 0. So in order to print the line number from 1, what we can do here is we can use this parenthesis here. Let me just move this to the side. So inside the parenthesis we can use I plus 1. So we can add 1 every time this value of I is printed. So it will start from 1. So let's run the code once again, and you can see now it prints this is line number 1, line number 2, 3, 4 up to 10. Now you might have already observed that whenever I run the code, this demo.txt file is overwritten every time when I run this code. So the old text is overwritten by the new text. Now in order to avoid the overwriting of the text, what we can do is we can use a special mode which is A here, and A stands for append, and this append mode is used to append the text to the file. So let's replace this W mode with the A mode now, okay? And you can see this is the previous content of the demo.txt file, and now when I run the code, you will see the previous content is staying there and the new content is appended to the same file. So A we use to append to the existing content of the file. Now let me go to the list of modes once again, and you will see there is a special mode W plus also, which means if you want to read and write at the same time, you use this W plus mode. And this mode is going to create a new file if the file doesn't exist. Otherwise, if file already exists, it's going to overwrite to the file which already exists. Also, you will see a special mode B here, which is used for the binary file such as images or other binary files. This R and R plus mode we will see in the next video, and I'm going to show you how to read from the file using these modes in Python in the next video. So let's go to our code once again. And in the videos in which I have shown you how to use exception handling, I told you we can use try with the finally keyword. So try, and we can enclose this for loop inside the try block, and let's do this. And then in the finally we can add the closing of this file. And what does this finally do? If you remember, this finally block is always called in the case exception is thrown by this code or if exception is not thrown. So this fh.close is definitely will be called whenever we use this finally keyword in order to call the fh.close function. So you can either use this kind of code in order to work with your file handler and then use this close function with this file handler at the end of the handling of the file. Otherwise, Python provides the shorter form of writing the same type of notation. And this notation is you use a keyword with and then you call open function, and you can provide the same type of arguments here. For example, demo.text and append, and then you use as keyword and then you write the name of the file handler, for example fh, as you have done here, and then you provide this colon, and inside this with statement you work with your code. For example, we work with the file writing with this for loop. So this whole code, including the try and finally block, is equivalent to this kind of code, which is the shorter form of writing the same code. So this with statement is going to always call this close method with your file handler when you are done with the handling of your file. So you don't need to explicitly call this try finally block in order to work with your file. This is enough to work with the file. So either use this notation or this notation. Both are equivalent to each other. Now the last thing which I want to show here is, let me just use the with statement in order to work with this demo.txt file. Is, for example, you don't want to create this demo.txt file into the current project. Instead, you want to create this file into some folder on your computer. So let's say I want to create this file inside this folder, which is inside my C directory. So I can just copy this whole path from here, and then I can just paste this path with the backslash here. And the important thing to note here is, on Windows you always need to use the double backslashes in order to provide the file path. Okay, so use these double backslashes to provide the file path. So C, inside the C directory I have this files folder, and inside the file folder right now you can see this is empty. And now when I run this code, let me just change the mode to W, which is for write mode, and I'm going to run the code. And as soon as I run the code, this demo.txt file is created here, and you can also see the content of the file on the right side, which is this is line 1 up to this is line number 10. So this is how you can create a text file and write into it using Python. Now in this video I'm going to show you how you can read the content of a text file using Python. Now if you remember, in the last video I have told you that you can use this open function to open any text file, and this open function takes two arguments. First is the path of the file with the exact name of the file. So because this demo.txt file is in the current folder in which I'm working in, that's why I haven't provided any exact path. I can just give the file name here. But if you have the full path, then you can provide, for example, C:\/ and then whatever is the folder name and then the file name. So either you can provide the exact path of this file with the file name, or you can provide the file name if this file is present in the same directory in which your Python script is there. Now the second argument which this open function takes is the mode of opening this file. So we have seen in the last video, when we write W here or A here, that means we want to write or append to the file. Now in order to read from the file, this mode here should be R, which is the read mode. In the last video we have seen this table in which we have seen that we can use this R or R plus mode in order to read the file, or if you want to read and write at the same time, you can use this R plus mode. Now if you see here, I have also written here that R is the default mode. So when I don't give any argument here as the second argument, which is for the mode, then also the default mode is the read mode. So let's see how we can read this file, which is demo.txt file, and the content of file is shown here. So in order to read the file, you use the file handler and then use the function, for example, read, which is used to read the whole file. Now, in order to print the content of the file, you need to use this print function. So this fh.read will provide the string, and then using this print function, we can print that string. So let's run the code and let's see what happens. So you can see it prints the whole content of the file. Now let me minimize this window once again. Now let's say if you provide some file path which doesn't exist. So this file name doesn't exist in the current folder, and when I try to read this file, let's see what happens. So it's going to throw an error, and this error says that no such file or directory. So if you try to open a file which doesn't exist, it will throw an error. So you need to give the exact name of the file in order to read it. Now here we can also be more specific, and we can also say that this is a read mode in which I want to open this file, and once again when I run the code, it's going to read the content of this file. Now let's say I just want to read the first word of first line here. So let's say I want to just read the first 4 characters of this line 1, then I can just write 4 here, which will read the first 4 characters of the line 1. Now if we just want to read the first 2 words of this line 1, then you can see the number of characters here, 4 for this, and then there is a space, so 5 characters, and then IS is 2 characters more, so 5 plus 2, 7. So when we write 7 here, then it's going to read the first 2 words of this line 1. Now let's say I want to read the whole line. So instead of some words or some characters, I want to read the whole line. Then I can use a function called readline, and this readline function is going to read the first line of the text which is present in my file. So I'm going to just run the code, and you can see it reads the first line of my text file. Now if you want to read the next line, then you need to use this readline function once again, and when I run the code once again, it's going to print the second line, and so on. So if you want to print the 3 lines, then you use this function 3 times. Now let's say you want to read some characters of the line 1, then you can once again write the number of characters which you want to read, and then run the code, and it will print the first 4 characters of the first line. And you will observe that when I use this readline function once again, the string starts from the ending of the first line. So in the first line, we have just used the first 4 characters of the first line. Now pointer will be set to the end of this first 4 characters. So when you use the readline function once again, it's going to start where the first line has ended. So first line has ended at the end of the 4th character, and then it's going to read the space and then all the line characters which are there. So in the second readline statement, it has printed this kind of text which is after the first 4 characters. And in the third read line, because we haven't provided any argument here, so it has printed the whole line here. So let me minimize this. Now let's say you want to read all the lines of this file in the form of the list. So you want to read the 10 lines of this file in the form of list. You can use a function called .readlines. So here you just need to write .readlines, and this function is going to give you the list of every line in the text. So let me run the code first of all, and you can see this is the list which starts from a square bracket, and the first element of the list is the first line with the \n, which is the line break, comma, the second element of the list is the second line of the text which we are reading from here. So now we know that this readlines function returns the list. So we can also call some index of this list. So let's say I just want to read the 5th line of this text. Then I can just write index 4 because index starts from 0, right? So let me run the code once again, and it prints this line which is at the line 5. Now let's say I want to read the last line. I can just say 9 and it's going to print the line number 10 of your text file. Let me minimize this once again. Now let's say you want to read all the lines of this text one by one and do some operations on each and every line one by one. So you can use a for loop for that to iterate over the lines one by one. So for, let's say, line in your fh, which is the file handler, and then you can print the line one by one. So you can call this variable which is line here, and now let's run the code, and it's going to iterate over this text line by line, and every line is printed one by one using this print line statement. So let's say you want to count the number of characters in every line. You can use this function which is len function, which is used to count the length of a string. And when I run this code, now it's just going to print the number of characters in every line. Now once again, let's say you want to count the number of words in every line. So we can use a function on this line variable, which is a function called split. So line dot split, which is going to split your line on the basis of character you provide as an argument here. So let's say I want to split the line on the basis of a space. So let me run the code once again, and now you will see that it's going to give me the list of each and every word of every line. So this is the first element of the first list, and then the second element, third element, and fourth element, and the fifth element. So if you want to count the number of words in every line, then once again we can enclose this code into a function called len. Okay, so this length is going to give you the length of this list, and when I run the code once again, it's going to print the number of words in every line of this text file. So if you want to count the number of words in every line, you can split the words using the space, and then using this len function, you can just find the length of the list which is returned by this split function. Or if you want to just see the list of words in every line, then you can just use this function without the len function, and it's going to give you the list of each and every word of every line of your text file. And of course, to make things easier, you can also use this with notation, which I've also told you in the last video. So you can write with and then this open function, and in the open function you give these two arguments, which is the name of the file and the mode, and then you can use as fh, for example, and then you can execute whatever code you want to execute using this file handler. For example, once again, I want to read the content of the file once again. So using this with statement, you don't need to use this fh.close function, because this with function is going to take care of closing of this handler by itself. So this whole code is equivalent to the code which you write whenever you use the try finally block with this code also. So this is also possible. So let me just remove this code and let's run the code once again, and it's going to give me the same result as we have seen earlier. So in this way, you can read the text files in Python. In this video, I'm going to show you how to handle JSON values in Python. So first of all, what is JSON? So JSON is a text format which stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and JSON is a syntax which is used for storing and exchanging data. Now, if you want to know more about JSON, what is JSON and how to create JSONs, and what value you can store in JSON, then I have created a whole video about that. So you can watch that video and understand more about JSON. So let's get started with this tutorial and let's see how we can use JSON in Python. So to use JSON in Python, you use an inbuilt package which is called JSON. So you need to import this inbuilt package which is JSON. Now let's say I have a Python dictionary. So let me create a dictionary in Python which have, let's say, so this is our dictionary in Python. So in order to convert this dictionary into JSON, you use this JSON keyword which we have imported here, and then call a method called dumps. So this dumps method we can call here to convert some Python values to a JSON value. And we will pass this dictionary variable a here, and in order to print the value of JSON, we can use this print method. So I'm going to enclose this JSON.dumps method inside our print function. Now let's run this code and you will see that this JSON.dumps function has converted your dictionary into a JSON value. So this is our JSON text format. Now the next question which can arise here is what data types this dumps function takes as an argument. So it takes a dictionary we already know now, but what are the other data types which we can pass as an argument to this dumps function? So it turns out that you can provide majority of your collections and your data types as an argument to this dumps function. So you can provide dictionary here, list, tuple, string, int, float, or a boolean value. Any value you can provide here. I think sets you cannot provide as an argument here, but other than sets, you can provide any other format as an argument to this dumps methods. So let me show you how you can provide all these values into this JSON.dumps function. So here in the first print statement, I have provided the dictionary. In the second print statement, I have provided the list. In the third, we have provided tuple. In the fourth statement, we have provided the string and then the integer and then float values. And then we have provided the two boolean values, false and true. And at last, we have provided this none keyword to this dumps function. So let's run the code and let's see what happens. So everything runs fine. So that means you can convert from this JSON.dumps function a dictionary or a list or a tuple or a string or a decimal or a float or a boolean value into a JSON value, and all these are valid JSON values. Now let me go once again to this dictionary method, and here also as the JSON values you can provide any type of values which I have shown here. So you can use inside this dictionary, for example, another dictionary. So I can just write so we can also provide a tuple here. So let's run this code and it's totally valid. So you can see our dictionary is now converted to a JSON value. Now this dumps function also takes few other parameters also. So we can also provide a parameter called indent here. So you need to write indent is equal to, and then after that you can write some number here. So if you want to give the indent of 4 to each and every element of your JSON, then you can write indent is equal to 4. And let me run the code once again, and now you can see this JSON is printed into a pretty format, and the indentation here, indentation means this indentation is 4 spaces for each and every element of your JSON. So if you want to print your JSON into a pretty format, then you can just write indent is equal to and the number of indents you want to give. So let's say I want to provide just 2 indents here, and let me run the code once again, and you will see now this only have the 2 indents for every element of this JSON. Also you can provide a parameter called separators, and as the separators, let's say first value I want to provide here is a dot value and the space here, and the second value I want to provide here is this equals to symbol. So what this separators argument does is it will replace your commas with this dot notation and your colons with this equals to notation. And when I run the code, you can see now the colon is replaced by the equals to symbol and the comma is replaced by this dot symbol. So you can use separators like this also, but I will not prefer to use these kind of notation. The original notation is the one which I prefer to use, which is with commas and these colons. One more thing you can use here is the sort keys. So you can just write sort keys here, and whenever you write true here, it's going to sort your JSON according to their alphabetical order. So you can see right now your keys are assembled in non-alphabetical order. So they are assembled in a random manner. But when you give sort keys is equal to true here, and I'm going to run the code, you can see age comes first, then the marks, and then the name, and then the object. So now your keys are assembled or sorted in the alphabetical order when you use this kind of notation. Now let's try to save this JSON value into a JSON file. So in the last video, I have shown you can use this with statement, and then you can use open function, and we can provide a file name here, for example demo.json. So JSON file always have the extension .json, and the second value we will provide here is the mode. So we want to write to the file, so that's why we have used w here as fh, and then using this fh we can write to this file which we have created. So we can pass this json.dumps function here, and now your dictionary A will be converted into a JSON, and then this JSON will be saved into this demo.json file. You can see here I'm working inside this file handling project, and here I only have .py file, and when I run this code, you will see there is one more file which will be created here, which is demo.json. So I can open this file here, and here you will see all our JSON values are saved in this demo.json file. So we have provided these values into the demo.json file. Let me just split the screen so you will be able to see it correctly. So we have provided a name here. So name is here, age is here, marks is here, and then the object is here, and also the pass is also here. So this is how you can write your JSON values into a file. Now let's see how we can read the JSON values from a file. So I'm going to remove this dictionary from here, and instead of using this write mode, I'm going to just use read mode, which we use to read from the file. And the file we already have. So let's say we want to read all this data which we have written into this file, and now instead of using this line, I need to use fh.read function here, and to print the content what we have read from this file, we can use the print function. So I'm going to enclose this fh.read into the print function, and let's run the code first of all. And when I run this code, you can see it prints all the content of this JSON. Now one thing which you need to observe here is this fh.read function is going to give you a string value. So to confirm that, we can just write type here, and we will just see the type of this fh.read function, and I'm going to run the code. Let's see what's the answer. So you can see this read replies you in the form of string. So in order to convert this string into some parsable format, you use a function called json.loads. So I'm going to save this string into let's say a variable json_str. This is the variable name, and we will assign whatever we read from the file into this variable. And now what we can do here is we can convert this string into a JSON value using a method called json.loads. So let me create a variable once again. So JSON value is the variable name, and then I can use this JSON keyword which we have imported dot loads function. So just use the loads function and then pass this string as an argument of this loads function. So this loads function takes a string and converts it into a JSON value. So now let's print the type of the JSON value. So I'm going to just write print type, and then we use the JSON value argument here, and then once again run the code, and you will see now the JSON value data type is the dictionary. So because now it's a dictionary, we can parse some values from it. So let's say from this JSON value dictionary we want to get the name. So name here we have stored is Max. So we can just give the key here name and then run the code. It's going to give us the value associated with the name, which is Max. So this json.loads function we use to convert from a JSON or a string value into a Python dictionary. So this is how you can handle JSON values in Python. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video.